Welcome to this week's Leading with Purpose podcast. This week I'm actually sat in the same room, which is a bit of a luxury, with the person I'm interviewing, who is Professor Georgina Andrews. She's Vice Chancellor of Bath Spa University, and I'm actually down here in Bath Spa on the campus with her today. And I have to say, when I arrived, it just reminded me as I came into the train station on the train what a beautiful city Bath is. And actually, just on the campus, if what you're looking for is a university that has just the most remarkable campus, then I think Bath Spa probably is up there competing with any university that I've been to. Absolutely beautiful. So, Georgina, thanks so much for having us down here today. And part of that is that later on, we're going to be at a dinner where you're getting together a whole load of regional and local stakeholders to bring them together. I think a bit to talk about, the strategy of Bath Spa. So really exciting. So thank you very much for being here. And it's probably worth just telling us a little bit about, let's start with Bath Spa, actually, the university itself. And then I want to definitely go on to how, your own journey ends up bringing you into higher education. But tell people a little bit about this amazing university and what it does, what it focuses on.
Okay, Bath Spa University is the professionally creative university for the future. That is at the heart of our purpose, our planning. And we're actually shortly going to launch our Strategy 2035. And we're reaffirming that commitment to professional creativity. We're looking at our strategic ambitions over the next 10 years, but a little bit about kind of our background and context. So we've got roughly 8,000 students who are studying with us here in Bath. We do have different locations. So we've got this stunning location here at Newton Park, but we also have a Loxborough Road campus, which is equally stunning, but very different. It's in the middle of an industrial estate, and it's a former Herman Millen furniture factory, which has been converted. And that's the home to a number of students on our art and design courses. But we also have 2 teaching sites in London. So in Hackney, we've been in Hackney for 5 years now, and we're actually co-located with New City College, which is one of the largest further education colleges in London. And we also, just in September of last year, we took on a second teaching delivery site in Canary Wharf, and that's home to roughly 2,500 students. So we've got, in total in London, we've got around 4,000 students. We also have partners throughout the UK and also abroad, overseas, so in United Arab Emirates, in China and in Malta. So that's a little bit of a few kind of facts and figures of the university. Just in terms of what's really important to us, inclusion and inclusive growth is something that is one of our core values as a university.
And I think I'm right in saying that you were Sunday Times University of the Year for Social Inclusion back in 2024, is that right?
Yes, so inclusion is really important to us as a university, and our teaching sites that I've just outlined are different, and actually we have different types of kind of diversity in different locations and even within those locations. So if we start with Bath and this particular teaching site, we have about a third of our students actually have a declared disability. A lot of them are neurodiverse. And actually, I think that could be one of the reasons why they choose to study in such a stunning location. And because here we're surrounded by fields, we've got that peace, that tranquility, and so that people can really kind of focus on their studies. We also have different types of inclusion probably at different locations. So in London, 25% I think of our learners are actually mature students. And by mature, I don't mean 21, which is the UCAS definition. The average age is in the 30s. And many of our students there are carers, they have families, and this is a real opportunity for them to actually transform their lives and the lives of their families and their communities. So kind of different types of inclusion in different locations. We also, in Bath, we don't just have kind of traditional undergraduate and postgraduate courses. We also have short courses. And again, short courses tend to be people who are in employment, but they're upskilling or reskilling. And we have a high number of those learners who are women. A high number of them are actually running their own business, and it's about taking their kind of business to the next level. Or it's about learning new skills like digital skills, just so that they can actually grow their businesses or access additional kind of career routes.
And I guess it's in the case of short courses, I mean, it's hugely innovative, isn't it? And in a way, you're already doing that lifelong learning entitlement provision. This is for people who are less familiar with that. Several governments have wanted to do is really help people who are into their careers to upskill, retrain. And so what it's looking at is a policy called lifelong learning to make it easier for us all to be able to go back and do chunks of education when we feel like it. But actually, you do need to be able to have providers to be able to do that. And often these are chunks of education that are much shorter than a formal degree. And that's something, Georgina, that Bath Spa has really pioneered, I think it's fair to say, in terms of developing that offer for people around here.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a number of different short courses. They tend to be a mix of what we call blended learning, so some in person, but also some online learning. And it's kind of step on, step off. Short courses that could be a week, they could be 10 weeks. They fit around people's work patterns, which is really important. So very flexible. So it's provision that we're really proud of. We've supported about 2,000 students through our short courses. And we actually had an Ofsted inspection last summer. And we were rated as outstanding in our provision, our understanding for learners who have very different needs and the support that we offer to them. And we're also measured very closely on the outcomes. So looking at the number of those learners that actually go into employment, who improve their prospects in the future. And we've got, again, those are some of the things that Ofsted were looking at, and we've got a really positive track record.
And I think when we talk about this idea of inclusive growth, that's what it boils down to. You're not going to grow, in a sense, unless there's the talent there to power a region, a national economy. And that means not just, if you like, more people being part of it. And that's a big part of what Bath Spa does as well. But it also absolutely means a more strategic focus on helping people who are already part of that economy be able to contribute more to it and to develop themselves. And I think for me, some of the work that is happening here really puts a sharp focus on the practicalities of what an inclusive growth strategy will mean, but also why it's so powerful. Because for every one of those numbers you talked about, when you said we've helped sort of 2,000 people. That's 2,000 lives that have been moved on, probably 2,000 careers that have been developed. And I think it's probably fair to say that you're still at the beginning, in a way, of your short courses offer and developing it out. You've probably got big plans to go a lot further, a lot faster.
We have, absolutely. It's something that is a core part of our offer and our contribution to the economy's growth strategy. So we're absolutely committed to that. And I think you put your finger on there. What we need to do is everyone work together. So it's about recognising everyone in our community and the contribution that they can actually make. Another example of that type of inclusion that we do within the region will be our inclusive communities work.
A bit more about that, because I think that's also hugely interesting.
Yeah, so this is work where we have people quite often who've not been in employment. We have quite a number of our people who are studying in our inclusive communities centres have families. And what we do, and actually this runs across the short course unit as well, is we don't expect learners always to come to us. So we actually go to them. So we go to places like Twerton and Radstock, which are areas which have actually got quite significant needs. They've got quite a low number of people who actually participate in further and higher education. We recognise that, again, I talked about quite a few female learners on these courses. Many of them have families. And actually childcare was a big challenge for them. So what we actually did was set up some childcare facilities literally next door to where the learning is actually taking place. So it's very much about and I know this is something you're really passionate about, Justine, is about breaking down those barriers, the things that stop people and make them think, no, that's just not for me.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when you look at the offer that the university has in terms of the areas it's really championed. For example, early years, you're probably the largest provider of teacher training in the region. But there's almost a natural instinct on talent development and people development. And I think that's what some of the inclusive communities work in places like Radstock really brings through. It kind of all connects. And you talked about that breaking down barriers to inclusive growth. Obviously, we pulled together a whole piece of work with Bath Spa to really show this in its totality. And I think it was actually amazing to see how these jigsaw pieces fit together. But also, I think for me, Georgina, what really struck me was just you'd worked out the natural fit of what the university is really good at and where it can make a difference. And then, if you like, applied that into the communities that you're part of. So in a sense, taking that widening access and participation agenda that all universities have got, but really bringing it alive for what a Bath Spa version of that will be. And I think whether it's a short course, whether it's inclusive communities, whether it's some of the work around early years, it really makes a difference when you add it all together, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to pick up that point about teacher education, so we have teacher education courses here, but we also support the Teach First programme, which is national. So we have quite a lot of provision in London for Teach First. And again, that's kind of more kind of on-the-job training, if you like.
Yeah.
It's about people who are already working in schools, but supporting them and accrediting that provision. We also have research interests in this. So we have some colleagues in our School of Education, and one of them, Dr. Sharon Collies in particular, focuses very much on inclusive early years education. And I think if she was here, she would say it's never too early to start, to actually, reach out and connect people so that they actually feel that they can reach their full potential.
And she actually got one of our Purpose Coalition Awards.
She did.
For all of that work.
Yes.
Because it's so transformational. And I think one of the interesting things that's happened on policy, certainly under this government, is that almost renewed focus on early years. And I think, there's such a level of progress we can make, but that does require insights, doesn't it? And they're coming from places like Bath Spa.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sharon has a policy background as well, and she's got experience in various different regions. So she has got that real practitioner expertise.
And let's just go back to New City College, actually, because that's, I think, a newer partnership for you. And I think it does underline that a lot of how you work, whether it's the initial teacher training, partnering with schools, some of your teachers that you're training are in the schools already, or whether it's with New City College and that almost that natural partnership with further education alongside higher education, something, again, that the government's really been focused on trying to cultivate. My sense is that partnership piece, indeed, look at what we're going to do tonight, bringing together a local region. I feel, Georgina, like that sense of needing to work in partnership is at the heart of how you see Bath Spa having impact. Is that fair to say?
I think you've really put your finger on it there. And again, one of our core values as a university is collaboration. We know that if we work together, if we partner with others, then we're going to achieve much more than if we just try and do things individually. Partnership is really important to us. New City College, we've been working with them for 5 years now. And it is an innovative partnership, I think, in that it is a partnership which is genuinely a university and an FE college working together as equals.
Yeah, tell us a bit about what it means day to day for both you as institutions, but the students that are part of it.
So further education colleges have a huge amount of experience in adult education and in supporting people to get back into education, perhaps after a gap, after a period of time, supporting people who may actually have moved to this country but actually are working on their language skills. So we've been working with New City College in a variety of different types of activities. So we do support some of the provision that they offer, but we've also very recently started working with them and they've been actually delivering our foundation year. So it's that kind of access into higher education.
And for people who maybe are less familiar with that, these foundation courses are really for people who've absolutely got the potential to get to university, but maybe they're not quite ready. And that might be that they've had a break from education, or it might be that, you know, they were sort of absolutely educationally talented, but just in other areas just needed to sort of work out how they were going to make the most of being in a degree. And that foundation year is one that, in this case, New City College will deliver, meaning that people can then go and get a degree.
Absolutely. And I think in terms of kind of that, it's very much a mutual learning experience. So we're able to kind of work on things like education because, again, New City College have an interest in pedagogy. So there are those kind of research and staff development opportunities as well between our respective teams. And
it's really interesting because it sort of brings us on to, I know what's in your mind around how you're steadily developing Bath Spa and this concept of being professionally creative.
Yes.
Because I think when you come to the campus, you sort of get a sense of why that would be such a perfect fit, because actually, you know, it's got this level of well-being around it. I can't put it any other way than to say it's such a beautiful campus that it immediately makes you feel a lot more chilled out and calm. Yes. And you have a sense that you probably can do some great thinking, great creativity in that kind of environment. But it's always been part of the Bath Spa DNA, hasn't it? This sort of creativity strand of what makes it work as a university.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have a very narrow definition of professional creativity, quite deliberately. So we have a really broad definition. But the reason we think it's important, we know that World Economic Forum, for example, have been, and employers have been saying that creativity is one of the most important skills or attributes that actually they are looking for from graduates, whatever sector. So it's not one particular industry. It's not just creative industries. It's actually broader than that. And we actually think that with the increases in artificial intelligence, actually it's professional creativity that makes us human, that makes us different. And so we think, if anything, it's becoming even more important in the future. And it transcends subject discipline. And that's something that is really important to us. And later, Justine, you'll hear one of our science lecturers talking about how important creativity is actually in science, which is one of those disciplines that you might not automatically think of as being creative. But I personally think that it's even more important in those subjects like science, like business, like education, teaching. Creativity is really important. And obviously it's important to our creative industries courses as well, perhaps in a slightly different way. But professionalism, again, is something that is important to us. It's about making sure that it's very applied. It's very kind of, we talk about a practice-based curriculum. And again, that's something that crosses different subject disciplines and may mean something slightly different in different disciplines.
It's so interesting because, I mean, obviously I think it's crucial, and I totally agree. I think it's never been more important in a world of AI. It's that human ingenuity and ability to think creatively has created all of this. AI has come from HI, which is not only human intelligence, but human creativity. And I think it's about helping people explore using all of their brains, maybe not just part of the brain that they're used to using day to day. And I think if you can do that, then that's the advantage that all of us have got. And in a weird way, it's a bit like a diversity question, isn't it? Why would you use a little bit of your brain day to day when you can tap into all of it? And I think for any of us who are getting used to using ChatGPT all the time, in a sense, that's like a sort of augmented brain, if you like, that you can tap into. And you need to find out. The big question is, how do you naturally tap into all of it, not just some of it? Don't be like a sheep in a field just nibbling at the next bit of grass that it presents to you in a way. You need to be able to look the whole spectrum.
Yes.
But that doesn't just happen. And I think for institutions and higher education in particular, helping people to learn how to be creative and how to apply that in any setting they're in is going to be the key to success, isn't it? It's gonna be more than just a knowledge sense, you know, in a particular subject. It's going to be that application, that thought process behind it that really sets out different students, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And thinking critically and like challenging perceived wisdom or truths.
Yes.
really, really important. I think we see it every day. And it's something that we're very keen to make sure that our students are able to actually, use their own human intellect to interpret the massive information that is available. So I think that's something that, if anything, is going to become more and more important.
And so for you as a university, putting this creativity right at the heart of your strategy and how you're going to work, that sits alongside a real passion for inclusion.
Yes.
And making sure this is open to everyone, not just some people. How will that, do you feel, change the university over time? It's already doing amazing work, but, what does that future look like for you? Where do you see it going next?
So I think we're at a really exciting time in really our in the journey for the university. I have to say, I'm going to show off a little bit now, forgive me.
Go ahead.
We had a really brilliant year last year. So we were the highest rising university in the Guardian League table. We went up, I think it was 47 places. So that was really fantastic. We also came second in the People and Planet League table, which to us actually is even more important because it speaks very much to our values. It's about ethics and sustainability and responsible leadership and management and education. So the environment is really important to us, but it's actually broader than that.
And I think it's worth saying you also won an award, I think, in relation to employability from the Target recruitment firm. And, I think what it's showing is an overall package. There's an amazing, if you like, foundation for this next 2035 forward look. But where do you see it going, Georgina? What's on your list and vision, if you like, for where you want to take it next?
So we're constantly looking at innovation, and continuous innovation is something that I think is very much closely linked actually to being professionally creative. So it's not just something that's confined to our curriculum. It's actually something that is the heart of our purpose and our planning. So what we're looking at is very much responding to the needs within the economy, the needs of the job market, but not just being reactive, being proactive. And actually looking and making sure that our courses are current, they're relevant, they're topical, but we're looking at kind of what's the next thing and making sure that we're supporting our learners. I touched upon the fact that our offer isn't just the traditional kind of university offer, and that's something that I think is going to, we're very committed to increasing. So in the future, we're creating lifelong opportunities for learners, so kind of an open loop education is one way of describing it, where you may go to a university, you study, you may achieve a qualification, you may then go into industry, into a profession, practice. Later on, you want to upskill, you want to reskill, maybe you want to change your career direction. And we know that increasingly people are having multiple careers across a lifetime.
I certainly have. Starting off as an accountant, then going into politics, then leaving politics or leaving Westminster, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Similarly, I started off as a solicitor in private practice, then become a lecturer, and then kind of worked my way through various leadership positions and now Vice Chancellor. So I feel that my career journey is like three different kind of careers. So that's something that's going to continue. We want to be there for our learners, for our alumni. And again, we see that being a partnership because we know that our alumni are gaining amazing, invaluable experience, and we want to retain that connection. We also have a graduate scheme. In fact, today I've just been presenting certificates to our latest completing cohort of graduates. So these are people who have completed their degree with us, and we have created paid graduate roles for them. It's a supported programme and it lasts for 18 months. It does include their professional development as well. So they're gaining additional skills and also networking. In fact, this particular cohort, they're off in an escape room this afternoon to kind of celebrate the end of their...
What kind of roles are they doing?
They've got a variety of roles across the university. I'd say it's particularly valuable when they're actually in roles where they can actually connect with current and future students. So we've got some brilliant people in our marketing and communications team, absolutely wonderful. They've really increased kind of the engagement with our social media, which is something, Justine, I must say that I just dabble at the edges of.
You need professionals.
Absolutely.
Yes, I know that feeling.
So they've got real expertise, but we've also had people working with our careers and employment team, with our international kind of experiences team. And so a whole variety of roles and embedded as well within our different academic schools, quite often moving outside their subject discipline. So we have a business student who's just been placed in the School of Design. We have a music student or a music graduate who is in student wellbeing services. So again, it's that ability to cross subject boundaries and disciplines. And actually, I think you were talking about using the whole of your brain or looking at all of the opportunities available. I think that's something that is really demonstrated there, because they're not just thinking, all right, I've done this course, therefore I've only got this narrow kind of tranche of opportunities.
And I think it starts to underline, if you like, the value of the degree more broadly, in that it's giving you an ability to learn. It's giving you an ability to apply a skill set in different areas. And I've certainly found a similar thing, when I first became a Secretary of State in transport. That was a big step up, and you kind of had to learn how to work out running the department and the brief. And politics is one of those places where you're suddenly in another role. There's no applying for a job in politics. There's a reshuffle one day and, you stop being a Treasury Minister. Next thing you're, Secretary of State for Transport. I go into international development, I go into education. And I think I had to sort of learn in really different departments, but go through a similar process, which is find out who these people are, get under the skin of the policy remit, work out how to get a line of sight through in some completely different departments. One was doing development programs all over the world. The other one was transport right here. Another one was education and much more policy driven. And I think it's people, and that I could feel that I was, taking a sort of similar jigsaw puzzle, but in different environments, and people being able to learn how to do that. And you only learn from experience. I think that's what I realised by the end of it all. So getting out of your comfort zone and realising you can be multidimensional as a person, you're not typecast into one thing, I think is a really powerful thing to enable people to do.
Absolutely. And again, that's very much part of our whole ethos. It's about working together. Innovation is clearly a key part of professional creativity. And our new strategy 2035, we've identified what we would describe as we're an innovation intensive university. We're innovative in our teaching, we're innovative in our research, and we're innovative in our knowledge exchange activity. But what we don't see is those being three separate buckets. So for us, what's also innovative and distinctive is the fact that it's the connections between the three. And those are kind of three typical domains within universities, but they should be inclusive of learners, of professional staff, as well as academic staff. But they also, my ideal project would be a project which might perhaps be a research project that underpins the curriculum, that perhaps engages students as researchers, and that leads to positive impact, so kind of knowledge exchange, kind of real world impact. And that's something that we're beginning to do, but it's going to be a key focus for us in the future. So it's a key part of our strategy 2035.
It's a really interesting model, and it slightly reminds me of some of the wider work on the Purpose Coalition. We have a thing called Purpose Lab, where we are allowing students, including from Bath Spa, to come together with our employers. This is paid work experience. It's fantastic for the students because they get to find out about all these completely different employers, different sectors. But actually for the employers, they're getting access to this wonderful talent pool that is there on hand to just be tapped into for advice on recruitment, advice on product development, advice on marketing and comms, as you said, advice on job design for those future generations. And it's really like this virtuous circle on social mobility. We, a bit like you, have actually had some of those Purpose Lab students come and do projects for us because we can see the value that they can bring. But I think once you get into that space, you start to realise there's a lot that we can get out of these sorts of approaches. And I maybe just wanted to finish off, Georgina, by coming back. You briefly mentioned your journey, and I think it's really interesting because I think I used to get annoyed by these people at school who they knew they wanted to be a doctor or a vet, and the rest of us were there thinking, I have no idea what I'm going to do at all. But I think it's probably fair to say that most people are not at school thinking, I know what I want to do when I get older. I'm going to be a university vice chancellor. So explain to people a little bit about that journey, because I don't think yours has particularly been a sort of conventional journey into this route either.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, if you'd said one day you're going to be a university vice chancellor when I was, 14, I would have just, well, first of all, I probably wouldn't have known what that was.
No, you just said, what on earth's a vice chancellor?
And why would I want to be one, probably? But so I started off, I went to university. I was very fortunate because at the time I went to university, there weren't, you didn't pay for your tuition fees
grant.
and I got a full maintenance grant, so means tested. Without that, I would not have gone to university because I was debt averse. My family didn't have a lot of money and I would have felt compelled to go into employment. That probably influenced my career, my choice of degree, actually. So I chose law because I did want a degree that could lead to potentially,
I could really relate to that. I mean, I did economics and accounting exactly the same on a full grant. There was no way I would have gone otherwise. And yeah, thinking it's got to definitely be something that I know is valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so that was really important. And if I hadn't gone to university, I would have had, I'm sure I'd have had great opportunities, but it's kind of influenced, my life and my progress. So I then qualified as a solicitor and I loved the training. I loved the process. I loved the discipline, the academic discipline of law. And initially I enjoyed practicing, but I have to say after a while, I felt that I had more to offer and I wanted to try something different where I felt that I was kind of giving back a little bit more. So I then made the decision that I wanted to become a lecturer and I took a big leap of faith. Because I handed in my notice, everyone in my firm of solicitors who were wonderfully supportive, but they all thought I was having some kind of crisis very early in my career. And they were and then they said, well, you go off and do that for a bit and then come back when you kind of come to your senses. So they were lovely. They were really, really supportive. But I then became an associate lecturer. So it wasn't a permanent contract. So there was a big kind of risk there. And I took quite a significant salary cut as well at the time. It was the time when in universities that you did have breaks in kind of the summer and Christmas time. Nowadays, I think those days are gone. We seem to be constantly busy on campus, but I actually used to go back into practice as a solicitor just to kind of top up my salary. But I knew from day one, I really enjoyed lecturing, loved meeting and working with young people. And I could really see the transformative effect that had on people's lives. And I was teaching a mixture of students. Again, this probably chimes with some of the things I've talked about. So I had students who were on HND courses. So just making that transition into higher education. I had law students who were passionate about becoming solicitors and barristers.
So were you lecturing in law and legal matters?
Yes. So my subject was always law, but across different courses. And my very first lecture was on, I think, real estate management for construction students. So again, mainly adult learners who needed some law, but not, they didn't need that kind of in-depth legal understanding. And I just loved it. It felt really, really rewarding. I felt that I was giving something back to people and you could see people developing across the course of their degrees. It was great to see them starting off building their confidence and then flourishing and then going off and hearing what they've achieved later in their lives. I think it was, so I never look back. I never regretted that decision.
It sounds like the minute you got into this right environment for you in a way, you clearly thought, right, this is it. I need to be in this kind of an arena. And it also sounds like, from the word go, it was that particular age range of, young adults and helping them make that step into a career that really gave you a buzz.
Yeah, it absolutely did. And I think the university life, it's got a cycle of its own, but it's more of an annual cycle as opposed to some careers, it's, more of a weekly cycle.
I certainly had an annual cycle. It was called the budget cycle. It was quite painful at times. But you obviously never look back. And I think what's interesting is bringing all of that lived professional experience and sense of purpose that you clearly had and were developing now into this role. And you can sort of bring it all together, I guess, Georgina, and really make this organisation and institution make a mega difference for a huge number of people. And I think that's probably the brilliance of being able to be in the role that you're in now for you.
Yes, I'm incredibly lucky. I've got a brilliant team of academics, and I genuinely think this is a fantastic university. I'm really proud to be the Vice Chancellor at this university. It really is a privilege. I mean, one thing that I would say, and I have got permission to say this, is that my son, we looked at lots of different universities. I've got two sons. We looked at lots of different universities for both of my sons. My oldest son quite rightly thought he wanted to go away, have a different experience, go to a different university. There was no way he was going to go to Bath Spa University. My youngest son, we did a similar thing. We looked at lots of different places. And in the end, he actually turned around to me and he said, "Mum, the only thing that makes me not want to go to Bath Spa University is you."
I can imagine.
He got over that. He did get over that. Now, I'm not allowed
Sensible.
to give you his course, and he's got a different surname to me, so no one will be able to track him down. But actually, he's here at this university, and it's great actually
Can
hearing
it be
as a
quite
parent.
challenging, when he's like, "I've got an issue I need to raise with you, Vice Chancellor"?
Well, we have a very strict understanding that I'm a mum as far as he's concerned.
Very
I'm not
good.
a helicopter parent.
Very good.
And if he's got challenges, he needs to sort them out for himself, and he wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, look, I think we should bring this podcast to an end because I know you've got other things you need to do. But it's been a fantastic podcast. Honestly, I was sort of blown away when I came on the campus. It was such a beautiful place
We're very
to
lucky.
be able to study. And I think bringing that together with the strategy around inclusion, around impact, around creativity and professional creativity in particular, just feels like such a powerful, positive mix that can have a much more profound impact more broadly. So Professor Georgina Andrews, Vice Chancellor of Bath Spa University, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.